Yet another new change of scenery. Same house, different room. Just thought I would switch things up a little bit. I will do my best to stay in front of that window. Always gotta love my light choices, light sources. I did like the basement lighting, that was quite nice. So maybe at some point I will repeat having nice lighting in my videos. Not today. So today, don't be afraid to spend time with people that frustrate you constantly. It will force you to recognize your aggressions and deal with them in new ways. Now, there are some caveats here, as there always are. And first, you should think carefully and perhaps seek external feedback about whether that frustration is real physical or emotional harm. You don't want to get into those or further those sorts of situations in your life. And second, you probably need a good reason why you want to improve your relationship, since it can, of course, be a truly trying experience. You need a strong reason to keep coming back to the well, to keep looking for understanding, to keep questioning your own reactions. But once you've cleared your check on safety and intentions, commit. Maybe we get so frustrated with other humans because we know they're not robots. They can change. They can invest their energy into something and understand it more deeply. They have the ability to make choices. So why don't they just do that? Why don't they just do what I think is the right thing? Act the way I think is best for them and for me? Why don't they just meet my expectations? At the same time, we fail to acknowledge that in that perspective, we don't meet our own expectations for ourselves in many things. And then come the parade of but I's. But I at least do this more often, or but I at least give my attention, but I at least try. They're not even trying. Maybe all true, but probably not always true, and maybe not always the right approach or the only approach. Because we see the world from our own lens of experience and knowledge, it is really tricky to truly have the understanding of why other people think and act so differently to us. And yet, it's that understanding that is so critical and something we can only deepen by spending more and more time with someone. It's within ourselves where the difficult task of acceptance has to originate, whether we have the understanding or not. There's always the knowledge that there is more understanding to be gained, which would probably make us more empathetic if we had it. We have to grapple with that constantly reevaluated moment of decision. Do I proceed with understanding, or do I lose that perspective? Do I become frustrated? We have to recognize that frustration as a choice we are responsible for. Otherwise, we don't have any real control to change it. It becomes entirely dependent on how the other person acts, or even other inanimate object acts. I sadly can't count the number of times I've cursed at something not organically alive out of frustration, though I think many times the idea is to curse at the person who brought this thing into existence in its current form. But again, the failing is probably mine for not understanding its design and intended purpose, how to use and care for it properly. It may just be a terrible product, but who hasn't made terrible products on the road to great ones? For that matter, who hasn't been a less great version of themselves on the road to better? And sometimes on the road to worse. This year, I moved back from Europe to live in my mom's house. Spend some time with her as she gets older, and me too, and try to fix things around the house and build more valuable skills myself. Wow, it was frustrating at times. And at some point, living at home with my mom and sister had me throwing in the towel and moving a couple hours away and returning for a week every month or so. But witnessing my building frustration was so valuable for myself to be able to talk back at frustrated James and say, yeah, but you know she doesn't hear well. Or, yeah, but you know they have different battles they're waging. And just revisit the excuselessness of getting that frustrated with other people. You have to admit to the choices you're responsible for and thus choosing to make. Difficulty and challenge force you deeply inwards if you're going to find a solution. And there are reasons, there is understanding, and there are solutions. But you won't ever solve those hard problems unless you engage with them, unless you commit to finding some way to see your progress and not stopping until you get somewhere and can hold that place as the new normal. If you don't take responsibility for solving those problems, then you're just hoping someone else, the other person, finally meets your expectations, a perspective in itself that can never be reached. Commitment doesn't need to mean that you smash your head against something until you find a way. It just means that you don't give up until you find a way. We need to find some joy in the process too, and I think for many of us that means we can't be so obsessed about our goals that when we start when the goals start being a constant drain, that we aren't wise enough to step away and work on something else for a little while. The answers will come when we don't give up, which doesn't need to be the same thing as taking a step backwards out of the fire. If we keep the importance of hard problems alive in our subconscious and break things down into smaller, more manageable problems that we can consciously work on without draining ourselves, then we can start to make progress again. Relationships are an amazing way to discover things about ourselves that other types of problems in our lives don't necessarily offer, and they don't have to be romantic ones to be worth our time and energy and commitment. That's my short insight for today. So, who's the first person that comes to mind for you when I mention someone that frustrates you, but might do so in a way that signals things you yourself need to look at differently? Go back to the safety and intentions check, and then go get freshly frustrated and observe yourself. And have a great day doing it.